If people jump in, they jump in. So what we're going to do today is kind of go through ZebraWeb, pretty much from front to back, but it'll go kind of quickly. We're going to talk about everything from entering games to other things about ZebraWeb you may or may not be aware of. Um, the one thing you need to understand about ZebraWeb is, like a lot of software platforms, there's a lot of times there's more than one way to do the same thing. So I'm going to show you one way, but that doesn't mean that if you've been using this and you've been doing it a different way, that that's necessarily wrong. But there are some things that I'm going to show you that, even though you might have the ability to do, I'm going to tell you not to do, because you'll just end up messing things up, and creating issues for your program or other users in your system. So we all know when we log in, this is what it looks like. And just for clarity, what I've done is I've made myself a team user for the Vernon program. So I'm trying to show you a screen that this is the same screen that you would look at. This is not my admin screen that me or the other assigner see on the back end. So we're going to kind of start from top left down. Um, you know, welcome just takes you to this screen. On here, you have back to main console. Well, when you get here, this is what you see when you log in. The only thing we use is the ZebraWeb.org. Now, for those of you that may be using ZebraWeb for some other organizations, ZebraWeb, for the most part, has forced everybody into their new user interface. And I've used that on other platforms. It's not where it needs to be. It's burdensome. There's a big learning curve. And that's why I had them agree that we were going to stay on this platform. This is their legacy platform for our season this year. Now, going into next year, the unfortunate reality is the NJISAA has struck a deal with Arbiter Sports. If you've been around more than 5 years, we used Arbiter Sports up until 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, the NJISAA cut a deal with ZebraWeb. Now, we need to be on the same platform that the High School Association is on, because without that, we would have no way to know where the officials are. For example, if an official lives in Montville, but he's doing games in Bergen County, if I don't know a high school game in Bergen County, I might try to give him a game in Somerset County if I don't know he's in Bergen County. So by being on the same platform that the high school's on, we can see where the officials are and where they're coming from, and it's important. So we have to be on the same platform. So the fact that the high school, the NJISAA, has changed to Arbiter Sports for next season, that's where we'll probably be too. But for now, let's go through ZebraWeb. So once you're here, don't worry about any of these three things: documents, presentations, links. There's nothing there. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is when you get a message from me, you're getting an email, but it's really in the form of a Zebra memo. So if you want to scroll, if you're trying to find something that I might have sent earlier, or we may have sent earlier, you can certainly scroll through your emails, but you can also just log back in here, and you can see the two most recent ones are here. But if you click on view Zebra memos, you can go back years, seasons. We're back to 22, 21. That's when we first changed over to ZebraWeb. So anything that you get in the form of an email through ZebraWeb is in the form of a Zebra memo, and you can always go back and find it here. It's a much easier way to see what's going on. Down here, we do have a YouTube channel that there's some instructional videos on too that might help you out. Some of them are similar to this one. In fact, this one probably will end up going up on that YouTube channel also. So now let's go over to teams and locations. Let's start with my profile. This is your profile. Obviously, you're going to put in your information. You got to choose in here. If you want text messages, you got to choose your cell phone provider. This is just a sample account for me, so I don't have it chosen there. Don't worry about affiliated schools. That's for officials. That's for conflicts and things like that. But just make sure that especially your cell phone numbers are right. And if you do make any changes, obviously just hit save. Notifications. If you're a program director, whatnot, I don't know why you wouldn't have every one of these boxes checked, but that's up to you. Now, under view, when one of the more common questions I get this time of year is everybody's trying to get their games finalized and get ready to put them in the system is, hey, who's the contact for, let's say, Watchung Hills? Well, you would think you would go here and you'd go to town and you'd go to view and you go to Watchung Hills, and it would show you who the contact is, but it doesn't. All right. The way you find out who the contact is you go here, you go into view, and then you pick a team from Watchung Hills. So it's kind of counterintuitive. So if you scroll down to Watchung Hills, wait, where'd I go? And you click on any of their teams, then you scroll. Now they only have one contact, but that's how you see who the contacts are for the program. You don't go to town, you go to view and then pick a team. You want to see who Bouton's contacts are? Boom, they have one also. Go to another one, maybe somebody that has more than one contact. Okay, there's the two contacts for Madison. So that's how you find the other program's contacts. Now, the question comes up from time to time, why don't we just put a list out so everybody has everybody's contacts? And there is actually a very good reason for that, because we used to do that many years ago. But what happens is those lists end up in the hands of travel team programs, equipment vendors, whatnot, and you guys, the programs that the contacts are in here, end up getting inundated with emails about tournaments and programs and travel teams and tryouts. So we can't put one list out there that anybody can grab. We also let you know that you're not supposed to share any contact information you get here with anybody outside of our organization. It's just not fair. So we talked about view. Now town, what you can see when you go for town is you can see, now he happened to put that in there, Ray Bixler. That's not common and it doesn't need to be put in there, but you can see when you go there, you can see exactly what teams they have. So that's one way to see, oh, you know, does Cedar Grove have a 7th grade team? Well, no, they don't. So you can go there. Don't worry about restrictions. Don't worry about history. There's nothing there for you. Now, if you click on My Town Users, that'll show you who else from your program has access to ZebraWeb. We normally limit it to 2. There's a reason for that, because every time I make a change, I got to go in and not only change the town, change the team, add the fields, and then add the contacts. It's a lot of work to add and subtract contacts. Vernon has 3 here only because I added myself. I'm not really a contact for Vernon's program. I just put myself there. So that pretty much takes us through here. Now I'm going to skip games because we're going to come back to games. But if we go into reports, you don't have to worry about game skin. There's nothing there that's going to help you, or town restriction list, any of these. Payment vouchers, if you wanted to go in here, if you're a town that uses vouchers, you can technically create a voucher using ZebraWeb. Not anybody really uses that, but you can. Composite schedule search is a way to search for games that are out there. You can pick a start date, an end date, and then if you wanted to find somebody else's schedule, you could pick the teams, and these are your parameters, and it would bring you up some data. Right now, other than a couple sample games I put in, there's no games in the system, but there's really not much under reports. Now, what you can do is if you want to know the list of officials, there you go. You click there, and if for some reason you needed to contact one of the officials, the list is there. Same thing with team users. You could pick a town, and you could see who their users are. So it's a tool, not something you're going to use a lot. Now, under administration, it technically lets you add a team user. I'm telling you, don't do it, because like I said before, you adding a user to this system is not going to get them access to the games, to the fields, there's so much else I have to do every time I add a user, which is why I limit it to 2 per program. I mean, we have 84 programs. So that's 168 people, but every time a program changes a team, changes a field or whatnot, I've got to go into each one of their team users and make changes there too. So, so I would just avoid using anything in here. Now, what I'm sure most of us came in here for was to learn about games. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about here under games. So obviously this is where you click to enter games. You're only going to be allowed to enter games for your team, and you should only be entering your home games. So the way it would work is you come in, you pick what level you want to start scheduling games for first. Now, one downside to ZebraWeb is rather than going to a date and being able to add all the games on that date, that's a feature actually Arbiter has that will be with next year. You have to just pick your third grade team, and then you just got to enter your whole third grade schedule for the whole year. It's pretty intuitive. Pick your start date, the first day of the first game, pick what time you want. That's the default, but obviously you can change it. You don't need to click AM, PM. Now, what this other time is, let's say you're starting at 6:15 or 6:10, because we have it by the 15 minutes. They used to not even let us 15. Let's say you're starting at 6:10 for some reason. You could put, or 6:50, you could put that in there, and then you would have to choose AM, PM. But you don't have to choose AM, PM if obviously it's listed over here. You're not going to be able to edit this. You're going to be able to choose your visiting team. I'm choosing out-of-state teams just so that nobody gets a notification of a new game. You're going to be able to pick which field you want it at, and you can't change the game type. What you can do is add a memo. If there's something going on at the venue that day, if there's something, the other program directors are going to see that memo, and the referees are going to see that memo. So if there's anything that you think it's important for them to know, you could just throw it in a note in the memo. But then you would just go to your next date. So again, you're going to do your entire third grade schedule, and then you would go to, pick another visiting team. I'll pick somebody else out of state. So Brooklyn, pick your field, whatever you want it to be, and so on. So you just go through, list all your third grade games. When you get to the done, you get to the end, you hit save games. Now, if you want to enter games, edit games, you can go in. I think if you leave the start date blank, it's just going to start with today. Yeah. So these are all the games that I've entered for Vernon so far. These are just sample games. They're all going to get deleted when we're done. But if you wanted to edit any of them, you click over here on the game number. And this is, now you can change the date, time, away team. All right. You can change the field. But what you can't change is the home team. And you shouldn't change the game type, because a fifth grade game needs to be a fifth grade game. Technically, it looks in here like it does allow you to change that. It probably shouldn't, because you don't want it to be anything other than a fifth grade game if it's a fifth grade game. So that's edit games. Now, released game schedule. Again, okay, put today in by default. This highlighted all the Vernon teams, all games. You can choose your sort. I normally like time and then location. But you could choose your sort. You can hit submit. And here's the thing. You're not seeing anything because the games haven't been released. When you put a game in ZebraWeb, the game's in non-release status. It's in hold. It's what they call on hold. The game doesn't get released until we put referees on it, and then we release the game. So you can't see that game. If you do want to see your games, you can go to view entered games. Again, pick your parameters. If you only want to see a week, you could put a start and an end date or whatever. You can hit view report. Now, if you only want to see your home games, boom. But if you want to see games home and away that other programs are scheduled, leave that open, click view report. And again, those are the sample games that I've put in for Vernon so far. Composite schedule search. Again, that was also located on the other thing. This basically allows you to search other program schedules. If you wanted to see, Warren Hills, and you want to see their home games, there's just a whole bunch of filters here you can use. Probably not something you're going to use a lot, but the thing you're going to use the most, especially in the beginning, is enter games, select the team you want to enter them for, hit submit, and go in and fill it out. And then once you hit save, you can come back and you can enter more games. Now, again, I'm going to do edit games, boom, in here. Remember, so once you're in edit games, right, if you wanted to change something, you can click here, And let's say I want to change that game and I want to change it from 6:30 to 7, and I hit save, and the change has been made. So it's kind of straightforward. If anybody wants to jump in the chat and see if there's anything they want me to go over again. Now, while I'm waiting to see if there's any questions, if you ever need a field added to your program, you just got to send me an email with the full street address or the GPS address of that field, and I can add it to your program. Same thing with teams. You know, some programs are still adding teams, dropping teams, and whatnot. Now, as the people who are going to be in ZebraWeb for your program, I would hope that some of you made that meeting that we had a week or so ago, because let's talk about a few of our scheduling guidelines. First of all, we as assigners are going to put referees on the games about 15 days in advance. Now, one of the things we have, and I'm going to log into the league website because that'll help us a little bit here. If you go to the league website and you just go to njlacrosse.com/2025, that's all this year's information. So here's your scheduling rules, you know, things that we recommend about Saturday games. I'm not going to go in depth about this. It's all here in black and white, but the bottom line is if you have 5 games or less, you can only using one field. Okay, question is you have a mixed grade team. Okay, so the easiest way to describe that is the league. If you have a 5th and 6th grade team, according to the league, it's a 6th grade team. If you have a 7th and 8th grade team, by the league standards, it's an 8th grade game. We technically don't recognize 5th and 6th grade. So because that would be way too complicated in scheduling, because then people wouldn't know, can they schedule their 6th graders against a combined 5th, 6th? So whenever there's 2 grade levels together, we just call the team the higher of the 2 grade levels. But that was actually a good question. So Saturdays, you have to have 6 games if you're going to use more than one field. So let's see what some of these other things are. Playing rules, incident report form, assigner list, referee payment policy. Okay, game change fee. So we talked about the 15 days. Once a game was in 15 days and we put officials on it, if you need to change that game for basically anything other than weather, which obviously would be day of, you can still change it, but you're going to get a $50 fee per game. And that is, you're going to get that is per game. So if you're canceling 2 games on a weeknight or 3 or 4 games on a Saturday, or even just changing them, just changing a game. Now, if you're changing a 6:30 game to 7 o'clock and I can keep the same refs on it because they can make it, yeah, we don't necessarily have to charge a game change fee there. But if you change it from 6:30 to 6, and now the officials that we had on it can't make it because they were coming from a varsity game, well, yeah, even though it seems like a minor change, there's going to be a game change fee. Same thing if you're just changing opponents, that's not going to generate a game change fee. But once you're within 15 days or officials are assigned, you're not going to be able to change the games. You're going to have to send an email to your assigner. And if you're not sure who your assigners are, again, you can go back to here. You can look at your assigners list. It's the same as last year. And in fact, I didn't even put the new one up there yet, but it's exactly the same as last year. And you can see your program and see who your assigner is. Now, I'll answer a couple questions. If the game's released and we need to adjust the time or location, how should we do it? Okay, that's kind of what I'm talking about now. Now, when I talked about we assign officials 15 days in advance, the exception for that is on Saturdays. Saturdays are a nightmare. You know, with the number of varsity games, sub-varsity games at the high school level, and the number of games we have as youth. So we might be assigning officials in April for the entire season. So if it's more than 15 days out, though, and it's a Saturday and you need to make a change, ZebraWeb won't let you make a change for anything within 15 days, whether or not officials are on it. But if it's a Saturday and it's more than 15 days, you're still allowed to make that change without any consequence or game change fee. But you're going to have to email the assigner, because once the officials have been assigned, even if it's not released, which I can show you how to tell if a game's released, but it doesn't matter. You're still allowed to change it because it's more than 15 days out. We just can't have programs changing games with less than 15 days. We used to do that way back when, and it was a nightmare. I mean, I'd be getting Wednesday night, I'd get emails, oh, we can't play our 2 games Thursday night. Well, A, that's not fair to the other team. And B, it's certainly not fair to the officials who could have been refereeing someplace else. Um, okay, if so Jennifer just also asked, no, if you're changing the same field in the same town and I can put the same refs on it, there will not be a game change fee. If you go through here and you read game change fee, it does give some examples that answers a lot of those questions. But that's a good question too. No, the whole idea of the game change fee is if it's going to mean we've got to change the officials, that's pretty much when you're going to get the game change fee, or if it inconveniences the officials. Now, to answer Tim's question, to get a second user added, just send me an email with I need their name and their email, and that's it. And I can get them added as a second user for your program. So while we're on here, you see the 15-day rule. Then there's also something called the 48-hour rule. And the 15-day rule has been around, I think this is the 3rd year. But the 48-hour rule we've had for 10 years. And what that was is if you cancel or change a game within 48 hours of game time, and it's not, oh, I see there's a typo there, and it's not because of weather, you're going to have to pay the officials for the games. And that was put in place as a deterrent. It's just as the game change fee is really a deterrent. It's not designed to be a revenue maker for anybody. It's designed to get programs to stop making these changes. Because in the case of the 15-day and even the 48-hour rule, the most common changes are school events or field conflicts or coaches out of town, things that are preventable certainly more than 48 hours, if not 15. The 15-day rule gets, every year, probably 80% of the programs end up with a couple of those charges. 48-hour rule, very rarely, but it is once or twice a year. But so if on Friday night, you, for whatever reason, decide, oh my God, I made a mistake. We have all these games scheduled, but we don't have the fields on Saturday. Soccer's got the fields. I got to cancel them all. Well, you're not going to pay the $50 per game change fee, but you are going to pay the officials for all the games that you're canceling. And again, designed to be a deterrent, but in this case, it's also only fair because these officials could have been working someplace else if they had noticed that these games were getting canceled for something that was preventable. Weather-related cancellations, it's what we call the 2-hour rule. Within short, as long as you give 2 hours notice to the referees, they're not entitled to anything if you're canceling because of weather. Now, proper notice is a phone call to each one. If they don't answer, leave a voicemail. If the voicemail's full, at least you tried. You must call, the home team must do this. They must call both officials. You can't call one and say, hey, call your partner for me. Now, if it's early in the day and we know that games are getting canceled, there's nothing wrong with sending a text or an email to the referees early in the morning and telling them you're canceled. But if they don't confirm with you before the 2 hours, get on the phone and call them, because some guys have jobs, some girls have jobs that they don't have access to their cell phones or emails during the day, and they're entitled to that 2-hour notice. So again, if you go to njlacrosse.com/2025, this stuff is all here. Now, for any of you, again, that are new, if you start to do games and you're going to need some help, you didn't really understand something, reach out to me, shoot me an email. You can send me a text. I prefer you just not call me out of the blue because I might be in the middle of something. We'll set up a time where I'll get together with you one-on-one, whether on the phone, if I got to do a Zoom like this where we share screens, and we'll get you through it. We'll get you to the level of knowledge you need, and you should be able to have a good season. Now, I am probably between now and the weekend going to open up for people to start entering games. So you're going to start seeing games in the system. And again, I'm going to review real quickly. When you go here, if you hit released game schedule, remember, you're not going to see it. All right, you're not going to see your games because they're not released. If you want it, you can either see the games you entered, you go there, or you can do composite schedule search, which is a lot more complicated. If you really only want to see the games you've entered so far, you can go here. And again, edit games, put your parameters in, and then if you need to edit a specific game, just choose. But again, you're not going to be able to change. If you need to change this 3rd grade 7v7 game, all right, what you need to do there then is you're not going to be able to to cancel it, what you're going to have to do is send me an email and say, hey, Randy, I need you to cancel on 4/5. I have a 2 o'clock game with my third graders against Brooklyn Lacrosse Club. I need you to cancel that game for me. And then you can go in and you don't even have to wait. You can go in and you can add the other game in, but you don't have the ability to delete games from the system. I'm not sure why they did that, but that's just something they did. I asked them to put in a tab here that when you clicked here, you would actually be able to delete the game, but they've never actually done that. All right, so let's see. When is it safe to send schedules to the teams or coaches? Well, that's a good question. Now, let's talk about that. One thing I'll recommend is this. You're going to enter your home games and you're in control of that. What you're not in control of is when the other teams put their games in. And that gets frustrating because I'm going to open this up over the next couple of days to everybody, but you're going to see some programs won't even start entering their games for 2 or 3 weeks. And it's kind of inconvenient because you want to be able to go in and you want to be able to look and see and be able to, cut and paste and send things to your coaches. The one thing that we highly recommend is that you don't have a separate schedule on your website. Reason being, we get a lot of issues during the season where the referees show up for 6:30 and they're supposed to have 2 games at ABC Park and nobody's there. And then they get on the phone with me, I get on the phone with the program, and it's like, they're like, oh, I don't know what's going on. Our schedule on our website says the games were tomorrow. Well, nobody cares what the schedule on your website says. And it's too hard to keep track of. Every time you make a change in ZebraWeb, you got to remember to go change the schedule on your website. So I suggest that you give your coaches their schedule. I would say, I would wait until at least a couple weeks before the season, mid-March. Give them a copy, but then you need to make your coaches aware anytime you make a change, or anytime there's a change made. One other downside to the system is they may have fixed this, and I haven't tested it. If I'm the away team and the home team changes a game, I think you now do get an email telling you that Vernon just changed your game from Tuesday the 5th to Wednesday the 6th. But you do kind of need to keep on track of that. Now, they're not going to be able to change games within 15 days. So once you're within 15 days of game day, those games are locked in short of a drastic change being made. But there is no one time that I can tell you that it's safe to tell your coaches what the games are because programs can enter games at any time. Now, that being said, also something we talked about at the scheduling meeting is in the past, we've allowed programs all through the season to add games. Now, you should get all the games you have now, you should get in the system and you should probably get them in, between now and certainly by March 1st, you should have them in the system. Because we have a shortage of referees, and it's not just that we lost some referees this year. Yeah, I think we went from 185 and I think we're up to like 170 now. So we're down like 15 referees. That's bad, but it's not the worst part. The problem is so many of these referees do boys lacrosse, they do girls lacrosse, they do track, they do baseball, they do softball. And the thing that's really hit us hard, not that it's a bad thing, I actually think it's a great thing, but the new girls flag football is taking a ton of our referees. And, they'd rather do those games because they're getting a varsity fee for doing the girls varsity flag football game. And that makes them not available to do youth. So where I was getting at is we may come up and say, hey, anything not in the system as of, March 15th, you're not going to be able to enter games anymore. If you want them added, you're going to have to go through your assigner because we might have to control it. And it's really going to depend on availability of officials and whatnot. So don't assume, if you've been around in the past, that it's going to be like last year. And we did talk about this at the scheduling meeting a couple of weeks ago. Don't assume you're going to be able to enter games at any time. Get everything in by March 1st. And then we will give some notice if we're going to shut it off. We won't just shut it off, but we may come out and say, hey, anything that's not in the system by whatever date we pick, April 1st, March 15th, whatever, April 15th, After that, you're not going to be guaranteed to get that extra game in. And that's not something we want to do. It's just based on the reality of not having enough officials. Anybody else? If you're thinking of it as a question, somebody else is probably thinking it too. All right. Well, again, my email is, I'll type it in the chat here, randy@njlacrosse.com. See what I'm typing. And so if you got any questions, shoot me an email. If you want to add a user to your program, change a user to your program, just shoot me an email, and we normally get that done pretty quickly. While I have you guys on the phone too, make sure your coaches are getting their IDs. We still getting coaches. We put on there that if you apply when you're not eligible, you pay a $50 fee. That wasn't designed to be an income generator for anybody. It was designed because last year we have 1,400 plus coaches. I'm going to tell you, last year we had hundreds of coaches apply who weren't eligible. And it takes a lot longer for us to decline a coach because he wasn't eligible and then have to send them an email and explain why than it does to approve somebody. I can approve a coach for an ID in a matter of like a minute or two, but it takes a lot longer than that to decline. So it was put there to be a deterrent. The problem is, well, I've done 600 and I think 70 coaches so far. I've still had a couple dozen apply that some didn't even have a USA Lacrosse membership. Some didn't have their bronze certification. Some didn't have any certification. It's like they're not following the instructions. And that's all. But the thing is, if they do need things, if they need a background check, if they need to get abuse training done, some of this takes some time. So they don't want to be waiting until, March when, now you're talking about, are you going to get back in time for the season? We're processing the coach ID requests very quickly. And again, if you want to see who from your program has done it, I know it was in one of these. Let's see if I can. Nope. One of these Zebra memos, I put a link up there. Here it is. If you want to see a list of the coaches, so on 2.5, you can go here, and this is a list up to date. So if you wanted to see whatever your program you're from, which coaches have or haven't, if they're not here and they applied, that means they weren't eligible. They didn't have bronze. They background check wasn't done. Abuse training wasn't done. Something wasn't done. But you can go back to that Zebra memo dated 2.5, and you can click on the link to see which of your coaches have registered. All right. Thanks, guys and girls. We got done in about 35 minutes. That's not so bad. But again, don't feel bad about reaching out if you need any help. Everybody have a good night.